The other area, as I mentioned before, is interdisciplinary dialogue, a bit like the Polar Archives season that I talked about. It's you know, let's bring people who have different perspectives and different educations together to think about the big things that are going to be affecting our world in the future. And I think that, you know, if we're going to have an innovative and ethical society, we need to break down the specialization boundaries and keep learning to work together and bring different expertise to bear. A lot of this is about changing cultures, of course. To be able to get a dialogue, you have to gradually change the culture within the scientific environment that you're working with, and you have to change the culture within the artistic environment that you're working with. And so for me, the founding of this network is very exciting because it means that it becomes an international effort, you know, and not just us flogging away in our little corner. So, and it's great to get together with other people who are doing this as well, and seeing how we can pool our expertise and move forward. I think contemporary art as communication, as a way of talking, as an opinion multiplier is subtle, and particularly when you're working on a small scale like ours. I do want to make the point that our work with artists is not illustrative of science. It's not representative. It's not very often didactic. I think critical art ensemble sometimes go into that territory. It's not explanatory. It's not about the creation of objects for the art market. It's about research and dialogue and good art and sharing. And what is communicated is not any explanation about fact, but an opening up of questions, and it's about explorations and suggestions about meaning and value. Okay, I have 3 more minutes?
Yes.
I want to talk about something that also has motivated me over the years, which is the why not? Why can't I do this? And this came up very early. Within the first couple of years of Arts Catalyst, I was working with Helen Chadwick, and she was doing a piece where she had a residency within the embryology unit at King's College, working with human embryos. And obviously this raised a huge number of issues about whether she as an artist would be able to be donated embryos for her work. And eventually we went through the Human Embryology Ethics Committee and got permission to do this. And we had the whole collaboration of the department. Everyone had to be involved, the doctors and the embryology researchers, and of course the people who were going through counselling to have IVF, who would then specifically donate their embryos to artistic research. And so there were a whole series of potential stopping points and reasons why we might not be able to do this, which were just really, really interesting to work your way through. And the thing that really interests me is that usually the reason why they tell you can't do something isn't the real reason, and the digging around during the process to find the real reason is for me part of the excitement. This is an artist called Jim Acord. He calls himself the nuclear sculptor. He works with radioactive material. We brought him over to the UK, and he did a big residency at Imperial College over a couple of years, working with the physics department and at the experimental nuclear reactor that they have. And we were working towards a project to transmute a highly radioactive byproduct of the nuclear process into a non-radioactive metal, nice metal. A very simple project, and one which we thought was quite symbolic about the failure of the nuclear industry over the years to really tackle the problem of waste, you know, before they started creating it. And we were told, initially there was everyone was very encouraging, yes, we could do this, and then suddenly they said, no, you can't do this anymore. And the problem is, because it's art, they said, if you call it science, that's fine, you can come and do it. You can link up with BNFL, who'd actually offered him a residency, you can come and do it. But you can't do it if you call it art. And there were 2 reasons we couldn't do it, because it was art. And this was this contradiction, that the reason they basically gave us was because art is, you know, frivolous and no one's going to take it seriously. And the real reason was because they knew that we would get a lot of publicity and that everyone would discover that there's a nuclear reactor at the end of Windsor Great Park, and they really didn't want this known. Why am I showing you this? Symbiotica, Oren Katz. Yeah, this was the workshop. I don't know if I mentioned was a collaboration between Arts Catalyst and Symbiotica, who I think have been spoken about today. Oren Katz, and we had some problem because we went to the Wellcome Trust to discuss this, who are a big charitable trust set up with the proceeds from drug research, basically pharmaceuticals research, and they invest in biotechnology, and they have a big art and science funding program. And we went to them and said, would they fund this? And it just took the lid off a whole problem that there'd been with Symbiotica proposing a project called Pig's Wings to an exhibition that Wellcome were doing about the future of genetics, and they proposed to grow tissue in the form of pig's wings, like pigs might fly. And Wellcome had hated this project conceptually and turned it down. And Oren had put their letter on his website, and we happened to say in the meeting, you know, so we assume this is all passed then, and of course they didn't know that that letter was on the website, and this huge problem blew up that ended up with Wellcome threatening to withdraw funding from the whole of the University of Western Australia. So there is a problem sometimes for scientific organisations, even if they're charitable ones, with censorship and how they perceive people to be representing science and what they're saying about science. Very different problem, a very different why not, is the work that we're doing with Brandon Ballinger, who's the researcher in deformed amphibians, where I've been turned down by everyone for funding. You know, the Arts Council, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, Gulbenkian Foundation, the Leverhulme Trust. Everyone said no because they can't quite get it as art. And I think that's really an interesting area because it's come up before, like when we did Macrolab, Marco Pelhan's Macrolab, we got turned down a lot on the basis of, well, you know, was this art? But then it all went quiet for a while and we seem to be getting away with most things, but it's raised its head again, and it's always very interesting when this discussion starts up about whether something is art. I'm only showing this because, just to say, with the ESA study, of course, we've had a lot of resistance from certain members of the space community on the grounds of resources. You know, they don't want resources being spent on art when it could be spent on science. So there's always going to be a competition of resources. And to conclude, because I know I'm over time, sorry, I'm really breaking, aren't I? This is Steve Kurtz from Critical Art Ensemble, who I have to mention as a sort of extreme problem in going into this area, who was arrested on charges relating to bioterrorism because he'd set up a home biolab and had various bacterias that he'd sourced for the project that we were doing on biowarfare. And I don't have time to go into the whole story, but there are hidden dangers in doing this, and people don't like people to step out of their specialisation boundaries, particularly if it's perceived as being dangerous or out of control. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola.